Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Wisconsin. It's supposed to get up above freezing. But we have an 81 TurboTrans Am here. You guys may recognize it from previous video. This is the car that has the FiTech fuel injection system on it. And today we're going to the dyno. And not only are we going to be testing the power output for the first time with FiTech on a turbocharged 301, but we're also going to be testing E85 fuel. So there's going to be back-to-back testing, 93 octane pump gas versus E85 pump gas. I'm super excited to try this. Been wanting to do this for a long time. The customer's been waiting too. So right now I want to go over what we're going to be hooking up some other gauges to test other areas, and we'll go over all that. But for right now, let's check out the car before we head over to the dyno. Okay, here it is. Today's test subject, Henry's 1981 TurboTrans Am. As you can see, it's got some 18-inch snowflake wheels on it, and it's a beautiful car. So under the hood, and you've seen this in previous videos, we have the 301 turbo. Only modifications to this, as far as I know, is a stock engine. I did not rebuild this engine. It does have 165 roller rocker arms on it. It has the FiTech fuel injection system. It has my ram air system, making the hood scoop functional. And that's about it. It does have the upgraded turbo that I offer. So it has the 60 trim billet compressor wheel and a clipped exhaust wheel, stock exhaust wheel. We do have my 2.5-inch downpipe on it, and right there you can see the wideband oxygen sensor placed in it for the FiTech. It's best that you put it in the downpipe because wideband O2 sensors do not like back pressure, which is what we're going to be testing today. So right here is the stock location for the original oxygen sensor for the 81 computer controlled cars. That is normally a narrow band oxygen sensor, and we're not using it anymore because of the FiTech. So I repurposed the port. This is going to measure back pressure, or basically turbine drive pressure, I guess you could call it, in front of the turbo. So we want to see how much back pressure we have, because that does make a difference in performance. We want to know how much of a restriction the turbo is on the exhaust. So we're going to run that into a boost gauge using some copper line. Can't use the nylon plastic line because it'll just melt. We're just going to see what the back pressure is in the manifolds and everything versus the boost pressure and get that ratio. A lot of people, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can read about when it comes to turbocharging. High back pressure is not good. You want the lowest amount of back pressure you can get, but as that back pressure starts to go down, you tend to get more lag depending. So we're going to see what this car makes with the updated or upgraded turbo on it. As far as the rest of the exhaust, obviously we have this, like I mentioned, the 2.5-inch downpipe. The rest of it is no catalytic converter, no mufflers. Basically a stock style tailpipe system. It doesn't have my 2.5-inch tailpipes on it. So that's what we're going to be going for. One of the other things that I placed another sensor. It's a temperature sensor, and let's see if we can get to it right there. So what we have here is we have a thermocouple that is placed into a brass fitting that is going into the #1 intake runner. So what we're measuring here is intake temps post-turbo. Now this car does have the water alcohol injection system on it. It is pushing about 14 pounds of boost right now. Water comes on around 9, and we're going to see what kind of intake temps we get. What I'm really going to be curious about is once we start going to E85, will those intake temps go down? Are we going to get more of a cooling effect with the E85? Now, I'm not expecting a huge gain in performance, and a lot of people want to sit there and go, well, how much boost can you run? Can I increase the boost any higher? I'm not sure if I can, great. What I'm really hoping to gain is in ignition timing, being that E85 is somewhere around 100 to 107 octane. If we can increase the ignition timing, I think we're going to gain some power. So that's where we're at right now. Well, we get this all buttoned up and get it over on the dyno and strapped down, and let's see what we can do. Just want to throw a note in here. The torque reading on the dyno was not working that day. The RPM sensor wasn't working, so we didn't have any torque reading. And we ended up being limited to about 10 to 11 psi of boost for all of the testing. And I'll explain more on that at the end of the video as to why that was. Okay, let's recap. Going to the dyno, the first pass that I made, or first hit that I made on the dyno, was with the current street tune that was in it from last year. That tune was a safe, conservative tune on my part. I only had the timing at 19 degrees, and I had the air-fuel ratio a little bit rich at 11.5 to 1. This was on 93 octane. The water injection had a small nozzle in it, a 5 gallon per hour nozzle, and I had the thermocouple in the intake runner measuring the air intake temp. So the first dyno hit made 173 horsepower because, again, we were limited to the 10 psi of boost. And the intake temps were around 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, first thing I did was I changed the nozzle to a 15 gallon per hour nozzle just to see if the intake temps would come down, and they did. The next hit, it showed intake temps at 126 degrees. So definitely an improvement in intake temperature. Then I went back and changed the tune, added 2 more degrees or 3 more degrees of timing, brought it up to 22, which is a little more in line with what the car does stock. And I leaned out the fuel mixture to about 11.8 to 1 on the air fuel and actually gained 12 horsepower. Well, that was a pretty significant gain for not changing the boost level at all and still running the lower boost. The next thing that we did after doing that test, I did try 2 more degrees of timing. The car barely picked up anything, so I figured there's no point in adding any more timing. I didn't want to lean the car out anymore. So the next step was let's switch over to E85. So with the tank drained, E85 put in, the modification that was made to the tune was to increase the cubic inch displacement in the settings of the FiTech, adding 30% displacement to it. So basically just under 400 cubic inch is what was programmed in there. That was the only change that I did. Now it was crude and fast, and yeah, other areas of the tune doesn't like it. The computer's trying to compensate for it. But at wide open throttle, it did work. And in doing so, just the change in fuel alone to E85, there was no other change to ignition timing, obviously no change to the boost level. Air fuel ratio was still 11.8. The car gained 20 horsepower right off the bat. That was impressive in my mind, just from a fuel change. The other impressive thing was the air intake temps dropped dramatically. The car was actually going down in intake temp as I was making the run on the dyno with E85. The intake temps barely cracked 100 degrees. The first hit was actually around mid 90s. I did hit it a couple more times and kind of heat soaked it and only got it up to 106. E85 definitely has benefits on any boosted car, especially this car not being intercooled, and I do plan to do more with it. Now, as far as the boost pressure, I think what was happening here is we had a pretty good amount of back pressure. We had about a 2 to 1 ratio. So for the 10, 11 psi that we were making, the back pressure gauge was showing and fluttering around 20 to 25 psi of back pressure. That's that's quite a bit. If we can get that down, we're going to make more power, obviously. We'll have to see if we actually get into any lag because of it. But in the meantime, what was going on with the wastegate, his wastegate actuator is a stock actuator that is not threaded. In other words, you can't adjust the rod length. And that, I think, is what was hurting us on the dyno. No matter what I did for my boost controller, I've even tried bending the bracket a little bit on the wastegate actuator to put more tension on it. I could not increase the boost. It would spike to 15 pounds, and the minute the actuator opened to slow down the turbo, the back pressure took over and would not allow the actuator to close. So you hit 15 and it immediately came down and settled at 10. We do have some plans of how to change that, modify it, and get it to work better. Like I said, on the street, it's a different story. On the street, it seems to work okay, but I think the way that the dyno loads and you're loading in third gear, it doesn't play very well, and we were just kind of stuck at that boost pressure. But we did see gains with the fuel. That's what we were looking for. Just going to have to go through and tweak it a little bit more, dial some things in, but we're definitely going to be continuing with the E85. We do have some ideas of other areas that we want to improve on, but that is for another video. So be sure to check back. This is not the last that you've seen of this car or of the fuel injection. Lots more things to come. Appreciate everybody out there watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe. I know everybody says that on their YouTube video, so I thought I would too. But hey, we're here for your TurboTrans Ams. Whatever you guys need, drop us an email, give us a call, and thanks for watching.